Teachable built its brand on being easy. Easy to set up a course, easy to launch a course, easy to sell a course. But easy can come at a cost. I'm Dr. Katrina Mitchum, and I've been designing and redesigning courses online since 2009. So there are a lot of things in Teachable that are easy, and I'm going to show you that. But I'm also going to challenge the idea that easy is everything. In each of the videos in this series, I am going to take one of my real lessons from my course and try to put it into several different platforms. You should always be starting from what do the content, the clients, and myself need for this course to be successful, for my clients to get the change that they're looking for. And so that's where I'm starting. The lesson that I'm pulling in is just a brain dump exercise. I do have 3 versions of the prompt, depending on where they're starting from. And there is a clear next step at the end of everything. It's very small and concise, and it has concrete action items. I have text, I have video, I have audio, and I have things they need to do. So as I am building this lesson in each platform, I'm going to be trying to answer 3 questions. Does it track activity for completion and not just video? Does it do branching? So can students see their own kind of personalized path through the course? And 3 is about friction. How many clicks does it take to get from video done to actually doing the work? Or what other kind of friction am I seeing from the student perspective? So let's jump right in. So getting a course onto Teachable is genuinely pretty easy and pretty quick. So I'm just going to show a real quick build. So it walks you through setting up pricing and things. Okay, and then you get to select if you want to create it with AI, create it from scratch, if you're bringing it from somewhere else, or copying over from Teachable. I'm selecting it build from scratch. And so this is your empty build space. Sections are modules. So I can rename this module 1. I can add a lesson or bulk upload a lesson, save it. And then I can start adding things into the course space. It's as simple as click add content, pick the type of content that you want, save it, it uploads, add more content, pick the type of content that you want, and then it will save, upload, and save. The interface is really clean. The navigation is super obvious. Right on the side, I can see comments, design templates, certificates, all the things that I need. It's very easy to navigate. It took me about 10 to 15 minutes of clicking around to figure out where everything was. And nothing's really kind of hidden in multiple layers. The learner side of things is also pretty clear. Where I am, step 1 overview is up here. I'm going to be showing you how I built this in just a little bit. So I can scroll down, I can see everything that I'm supposed to be doing. I can complete and continue. I can keep going. I can't complete and continue because I need answers here. So it's walking me through everything that's already set up, and so that is also pretty easy. So for a first or second or even third course, this does what it says on the box. It's easy to use, easy to set up. So I'm going to show you how I tried to take the first part of my course and pull it into Teachable. So I have jumped in to edit the curriculum. I have pre-built some things, but I want to show you what it was like to try to take the things that I want to do in my course, because I know it's best for my clients, and build it in this space. Because we always want to make sure that we know what we need before we go and select a platform. We might have to do creative workarounds, but it's important to know what we need first. I am also going to answer those 3 questions. The first question is whether or not the platform tracks engagement and active learning and not just video watching. So to show you that, I'm going to jump into what my module 1 lesson 1 would be and show you what you can and can't track. Okay, so there are educational tools in here. We have quizzes and we have open-ended questions. So if just understanding the information is the goal of that particular lesson, then you can build a quiz. This will show you whether or not they have done said quiz. The other option is an open-ended question. And in here, you can ask a question, and as you notice down here, there is a toggle to require the answer. So the answer to that question is yes, we can track activity. So the lesson that I'm going to build out here is the same one I'm doing on every platform that I'm going to be walking through. And it's a real lesson from my own course. It's a brain dump exercise where they do a 20-minute brain dump. But it has 3 different versions because clients come to me in various stages and phases. And so I have 3 separate paths. It's not super complicated other than pick your path, go follow your path. Okay, so I have set this module 1 here up, just like anybody else would, right? Module 1 is the jumpstart. And then within module 1, I would have various lessons. My first lesson is that brain dumping lesson. So when I get in here, I am going to add text because I like to give some overview information before folks get started. It lets them kind of situate themselves in the lesson itself to know what's coming and what to expect. And then normally I have all of the brain dumping pieces explained. And so what I might do is click add content. I have a video to upload. So then the next kind of piece of this lesson is I would add in the path options that they have. Click save. So you would see the video in between these 2 steps or these 2 pieces. And then I would also add, I have a video going over why you would choose one path over another. And then I would add more content. Now the problem that I get into here, and you'll see that I had these linked, the problem that I get into here is separating out into paths, right? So there's not really an option. I can put Zoom in here. I can embed media. I can do a little bit of code, but that's not really going to work within the lesson space because it is so, it's linear and there's not a way to link from one area of the lesson to another area of lesson, right? There's no anchor like there would be on a web page. But I am going to keep going and kind of show you what my options are for the actual activity that I do. Let's just say I'm going to build path 1 instead. So my path 1 has some instructions. So the whole kind of activity space has, the instructions, like what we're going to do and what to do if you get stuck. And then also a list of questions. And then I'm going to require an answer. Requiring an answer does mean that I can sort of answer that first question, the question of completion tracking. Will the program let me track activity and not just video watching? So I'm going to click save and I get a character. I've run into a character issue. So my solution, and I'll show you that in a little bit, my solution is to pull this out and do some other things. I will show you how I got a little bit creative, but for now, I'm just going to cut some things out so we can move along and I will show you my workaround later. Okay, so I went ahead and published that lesson so I could show you what the learner side looks like. So I will start this lesson and you can see we've got my overview, we've got my paths, and then we've got that one question. It is required, and so I can put an answer in and submit it, and then I can complete and continue. It's going to take me into the other space that I haven't shown you yet. Okay, so now I want to show you what that actually looks like. So in my course, people can go through it as many times as they want. Specifically, this part might be useful for them. In lesson completion, I can see like larger segments of who's in the course, right? I only have one person in there right now because it's just my test account. But I can also look at video stats, and this will give me some overall video stats. I don't think I have anything in there that's played yet. Quiz scores, there's a leaderboard if you wanted to do a little gamification. Don't do that unless it's already a good course. And then open-ended questions. And so I can see that the test student did the lesson 1 brain dumping with this question, and then the answer just shows up right here, right? There's no way for me to really like respond in this space. So if I wanted to respond to what the client is sending, I can't do it right here. I could export and then respond in other places and spaces. I just won't be able to do it right here. And then finally, if I'm a student and I'm trying to complete this more than once, I can't, right? So my answer stays my answer for always. So my verdict on whether or not Teachable passes this first like completion tracking and engagement, right? Like really, we want to make sure that clients are engaging with the content, they're taking action, and that we can help guide them if they need it. Kind of right? So like it does the first part pretty well. We can see where folks are doing the activities. We don't get really stats on that overall, and we can't get down into nitty-gritties. We can just see kind of segments to get overall percentages. But it does give us the ability to say, okay, test student 2 did nothing. They didn't do any of the activities. That means they actually haven't gotten past this first lesson. So I would give this like a conditional pass before moving on to the next step. Okay, so the second question that I'm tackling in these platform overviews is whether or not you can build pathways through the learning, right? Not everybody that comes to your course is going to need every single thing that you have, or they may need like a little bit veering this way before they come back in to do the rest of the work. I've already covered this a little bit, but I was not able to actually set up each of these paths without making it kind of this long lesson, right? I would have to set these paths up separately. Path 1 would have to have the information in the video and then have the open-ended question. I'd probably have to have the questions baked into the overview because it doesn't take a whole lot of characters. And so I'd have to set those up, and there'd be a lot of scrolling, again, because there's no way to kind of anchor to a particular section of the lesson. And so I do have a workaround that I'm going to show you. Okay, so this up here, Module 1 Jumpstart, that's where we just were. Normally I would do Lesson 1, brain dumping, Lesson 2, looking backwards, but I'm not doing that here because the system isn't set up for that. So instead, I'm kind of restructuring everything so that Module 1 is the brain dump, and then Module 2 is the looking back. And so I was able to pull out all of those bits and pieces. So you can see my step 1 overview in here, and where I'm explaining what the brain dumping is and how to pick their own path. And then I had to make each path its own lesson in order for it to really work in the way that I want it to work for my clients. And so if I click on path 1, you can see that I have the text instructions. You would be able to see this as a learner. I have the video overview. I like to include an audio as well, just in case. I have pulled in all of the questions just as text, and then I have the question that I need them to answer in order to move on. Now, if you're doing drip and you have all 3 paths, this means that if instead they're in path 2, or if they're in path 2 and they didn't come in here and do path 1, it means that they won't be able to move on to the next step, right? The looking back module. So you want to make sure that it's only required if they're in that lesson, but so that they can see all of the lessons together. So this layout isn't perfect. It does make it so that I have to do a lot of explaining on how to navigate in things like the overviews and a welcome video. So I'm going to say that it doesn't pass this question because I had to do the create workaround. It's not exactly designed for pathways. Okay, so I am going to jump back into the learner view for a few reasons. One, my last question is kind of around clicks, right? And really how many clicks is based on barriers. So what kind of barriers are clients coming up against when they're trying to actually do the work of the course? So this is the course that we were just looking at. This is from the client perspective. So that's the one that I was creating that the layout didn't work well for what I'm trying to do. But this is how it looks from the student perspective. I can click complete and continue. So that does take me to path 1. If I don't need to be on path 1, I can click ahead to path 2. I didn't put anything in path 2. But I also didn't make it drip, right? And so you can see that in path 1, even though it's required, it's not going to show up as complete because I haven't actually answered it. But if I did the same thing here and had that question, then I would be able to track which path they're on because it would show up in that student view. So if you tend to have clients that kind of panic when things aren't checking off properly, this workaround is going to cause some anxiety, right? As a learner, I can come in here and I can read the things and I can press play and I can listen to it and I can see the questions. But because of the way it's set up, I do have to scroll a little bit to get to the answer. That's pretty standard. Most of them are like that. But if I put my response in the text box, we can see again that I then can't change it. So if I want to come back and revisit these questions or resubmit something, then that is going to be a problem. I would have to have the whole course reset. It also means that I will have pieces and parts that are not showing up as complete. So we're going to pretend like I have module 2 in here. So this shows that there are things that I haven't done. This is also the starting page for the course. And we can also go out and see my other courses that are published in, so I can jump into other courses as well as a student. The other thing to note here about the student experience is you can see these little timestamps next to the steps. This 2 minutes and 42 seconds is actually what you get when you add up the amount of time that my videos are. And so it's not taking into consideration reading time, it's not taking into consideration audio time. It is literally just how long it's going to take you to watch the videos, which is a little bit problematic, right? I would also, and I'm going to go back in and include how long to spend, right, on each of these things. I've already included that in the instructions, like you're going to go get a timer, you're going to spend 20 to 30 minutes. Making sure that you include that is going to help with that learner experience, but there's not really any way to get rid of these time estimates that are very clearly not accurate. So overall, the learner side of things is easy to navigate. There are some things that make it problematic depending on what you're trying to build. And how long things might take clients as they're working through each of these steps. And so that question 3 is about barriers. I wouldn't necessarily say there are click barriers outside of having to be creative in having multiple pathways. That can create some click barriers. But in general, having to set it up this way is what is creating barriers and not being able to kind of adjust that timestamp. The final barrier that I want to talk about is actually because the course isn't set up for any kind of feedback. So if that is something that you want to include, while you can get their work, the feedback has to happen in another space. And sometimes the more places you send them, the more difficult it can be. Okay, so one other thing that I'm going to go through, just because I have access to Successible, which is an accessibility checker for online websites, I'm running both the designer side and the student side through Successible. So it runs an accessibility check, checking WCAG standards to tell me what's wrong with it. Now, I have gone through all 22 poor color contrast elements, and it is all within Teachable. They have low contrast issues with all of this navigation on the left, and then the skipped heading levels. So I did name this pricing plan, but I can't control the heading level of how it shows up on this page. So I have run the accessibility check again on the edit your outline piece, right? Again, we have poor color contrast. My guess is most of these are going to be all of the same ones. So again, the buttons, it's all the navigational pieces of the platform itself. I guess this new section, I didn't even know that was there. So I'm glad that it pointed it out. Apparently you can add new sections between the modules, which clearly I didn't see. I don't know if that was hiding on purpose, but that is something that is coming up. It's going to be all of the other buttons as well, including the one I did know about. So it is really all about poor color contrast on the designer side of things at the kind of module outline level. And so next I'm going to jump into a lesson. Okay, so I ran Successible again on the kind of lesson designer lesson page. A lot of poor color contrast. All of these are, again, the navigation within Teachable, which isn't anything I can control. But heading 1, this one right here, is something that I can go in and control. So it has low contrast. As you saw, I copied and pasted in, and it actually didn't pick up. This isn't the right hex code. So it either wasn't seeing, I'm not really sure why it picked up the wrong hex code, but that I can come in and change. Okay, so I had changed it to my regular brand color and made it bold, which is closer to what my brand font is, and that piece disappeared. The other thing it's doing is skipping heading levels. So I can go click this. the issue and go straight to it. Multiple H1 headings found. So right now this is guiding me to this H1 and I'm not seeing the second one. It could just be that it is somewhere embedded in like this jump, like the title of the video that I can't see or control. And then the last one is missing captions. So media element 1, missing audio captions or transcript. And that's true. I did not take the time. I do have the transcript. I didn't take the time to put it in with the audio. So I love that it picked that up because I wasn't creating this for a real person to use. I didn't bother bringing that over, but this is a really good reminder to make sure I remember to do that if I were to make this live. Okay, so this is the view from the student's perspective. I am going to go ahead and run the accessibility checker a few times. It showed up good. All text is good. The color contrast looks good. There's no skipped heading levels or missing captions, so that's great news. If I start a lesson, I can check this page individually as well. Okay, so it's telling me there's 4 issues. 3 of them are color contrast, and those are, you can't see that button, but those are all grayed out buttons because I'm not allowed to click them yet, but that is still an issue. And then skipped heading levels. So again, it's telling me multiple H1s found. That could be because when this was copied and pasted in, this is one that I can myself fix. Because I copied and pasted, these had heading H1s because they were built into a document on separate pages. So that totally makes sense. Now I'm going to skip ahead to the student view of the same lesson I looked at. So I ran the accessibility checker again, and I'm still getting those same 3 button issues, which I will continue to get all over this view, but everything else came back fine. And so for looking at the student view, it looks like as long as you are designing with the pieces in mind that you need to have there, right? It's going to show up fine for students. Some of these design pieces are on the side of Teachable, so you can't really control those things. And it does look like it's button colors, right? So things that are grayed out so that I cannot actually change them. If you want to get Successible for yourself, I am going to have the link in the description. Okay, so based on the 3 questions, Teachable gets a kind of. So for question 1, it gets a conditional pass, right? Because it does track, or you can turn on the ability to track whether or not they're doing some of the actions. It just, you can't respond to them on the platform itself. And if they have done it once, then they can't go back and do it again. So that's an ish pass. For question 2, that's kind of a hard fail, right? There's no ability to branch. And the workaround that I showed you does require students to read carefully to make sure they're clicking on the right thing. And that's a really good learning design, right? And for question 3, I am going to call it a fail because there is friction. So it didn't fail for the reasons I thought, right? I thought there was going to be a lot of clicking between the things that you could do. It had been a while since I've been in Teachable. So this wasn't about click count. It was about the friction of once they submit things, they can't come back to it, right? There's this friction if your course or your lesson needs to have feedback or they want to be able to go back and do the thing. And that kind of all comes back to the core of my recommendations for platforms always. And it's that it needs to fit what your clients need, how the course needs to be designed in order for them to get the results that they came for. And it needs to be able to support you supporting them, right? And so for my lesson, there were a lot of things this failed on. If you had one kind of micro lesson that you were hoping to host in Teachable, it absolutely would work. But it did make doing certain things not very easy. So if you are trying to build a course that has multiple pathways, that has places where they can submit things and get feedback on them, this might not be a good platform for you because it does set up a lot of friction to be able to do those things. There are workarounds, but workarounds always come at a cost. So overall, Teachable was a little bit better than some of the other platforms that I'm going to walk you through because they do at least have some educational tools. Really, your choice in platform depends on what your course needs. Do not start with which platform. That will do too much directing of the kind of course you can build. Most of these were never designed to ask whether or not students are actually learning. If you still need to get your foundation straight, go ahead and sign up for my newsletter. It is in the description. The next course platform that I'm going to walk through is Kajabi. If it's not there, it'll be there next week.